Hey everybody, welcome to Playbook by Laserforce Loveland. This podcast is a platform for laser tag players to geek out about strategies, sports, and ongoings in the Laserforce scene, and for you to join us as another player at the table. My codename is Mischief, and I'm a player from Loveland, Colorado, who loves to talk about tag. Tonight I am joined by our esteemed guest, Slaughtermelon from Cedar City, Utah. How you doing, Slaughtermelon?
Oh, doing fantastic. How about yourself, Mischief?
Doing great, man. I'm going to refer to Caleb or Slaughtermelon as Caleb a number of times tonight. Caleb, would love to hear a bit about your origin story. It does begin with us at the same site, and you as, I think, a 13-year-old ready to drop his first pentanuke.
That is a good introduction. I appreciate it. So I started in 2015, 8 years ago, so I'm 13 years old. For Christmas, and funny enough, I love that you bring this up. My mom and I were talking about this on the phone today. I was like, Mom, I never would have started to play laser tag if you didn't get me some Loveland laser tag passes for Christmas when I was 13 years old. So that is how I started. And then next thing you know, a couple of the Space Marines members, specifically Josiah or Bagel, said, hey, you should
Bagel,
come try out
Trophy.
laser tag on this more advanced level. Come give it a shot. And from there, the rest is really history. And I guess that's what we're here to talk about today.
Heck yeah. And, Slaughtermelon's journey has taken him through many tournaments and even to Cedar City, where he now is a site owner at an up-and-coming site out there. And, just the developments are so cool to hear about. And, of course, got to applaud Slaughtermelon. He and U.S. West, he was playing commander for the team that took first at Laserforce Internationals this past summer. So we're really excited, and it's an honor to have you on today. Today we were talking about what we were going to talk about, and there's many ideas, but I wanted to talk about playstyle, the concept of playstyle and developing playstyle, because specifically having known Slaughtermelon since he was 13, having played together and seen him progress over the years, he's a prime example of someone who I would say you've had a playstyle that has developed and evolved as you've grown as a player. I suppose we could start by defining playstyle a little bit. I mean, so when you're playing the game of laser tag, Space Marines is what we like to play, but really any game mode, you're trying to make choices that will help you win the game. But I would make a case that everybody seems to have tendencies, things that they excel at, things that they naturally gravitate towards, strategies that work better for them, or it's like almost part of their personality or their archetype. I don't know. What do you think? Is that a good definition of a play style?
That's actually one of the best definitions and examples you can get. Or sorry, not examples, but
Ooh, thank you.
definitions. Yeah, truly of what a play style is. They're tendencies that make a player perform and make their choices throughout the game. Whether that's aggressive tendencies, defensive tendencies, slow, fast, and there's a lot of different attributes or traits that go
Right.
into these. So
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a few off the top of my head. Man, I'll name. I have to name ones from our site. I'm trying to think of more international ones. Okay, I can name one. Cody. He's a I really don't know what his code name is, unfortunately. It's in Japanese characters. We often just call him Cody. But he played on our Nats team. And whether he plays in Syracuse, whether he plays in Loveland, whether he plays in Auckland, those three places I've seen him play, regardless of what role he's playing, whether it's heavy or commander or scout or medic, Cody is kind of he has tendencies towards defense. He holds a prime territory, and he's really good. This is one of his special skills. He's really good at trading with people from his spot. and he often racks up a lot of points doing this. But Cody also, it's one of the funniest things. He is one of the only laser tag players I know that likes to wear bright white and neon colors. He makes no effort to really be a hidden player in the arena. His presence is loud and people know where he is, and he's sort of fighting from that spot. I might call that like a I don't know, a defensive play style, a farming play style. I don't know. But then you're going to have other players who I'm going to say Loki from Loveland. Not as many people know Loki, but, you know, Loki is the god of mischief in the Marvel Universe. Loki is not the fastest player, but he is stealthy. He doesn't communicate super loud. He always racks up a super high hit diff, no matter what role he's playing, any of the 5 roles. He is pretty much firing from the back line rather than getting in your face and fighting you face to face. If he has a choice, he's going to shoot you in the back rather than the front. It's much more of an assassin play style or a sniper play style. And we could go on and on. Do you have any examples that you want to name?
Yeah. I'd say, you know, let's talk about Bagel, Josiah, his play style. You know, his is one of the more like fast-paced, speed-based, you know, I'm going to get from point A to B really, really quick. And he's extremely loud too. So it's probably it's one of the easier examples to give when talking about people's tendencies or play styles is, you know, that loud and fast and aggressive.
Yeah, I don't know what you'd call that, like a wrecking ball kind of play style, or I don't know. But here before I want to ask about your play style as one of the big parts of this video, and you got more to say about like the meta. I want to get your thoughts on a theory that I have for play styles, because when I think of play styles, I kind of go to Dungeons and Dragons and I think about like, oh, fighters and rogues and wizards and that kind of thing. So in my mind, I started to think about like 4 different types, like categories of player, which is not all encompassing or anything, but you know, when you're creating categories, you're inherently simplifying things a little bit. So the 4 styles are forcing, controlling, farming, and support. A player that is forcing is a player who is initiating change against the other team actively. Like if the other team is holed up, even if it's not necessarily advantageous or it's not the most likely thing that a player can push the enemy team out of the spot they're holding, a player that is forceful or forcing may naturally gravitate towards wanting to try to break through a team like that, even if it doesn't work. Like their goal in the game is, I see what the enemy team's doing, I've got to force them out of that spot. I've got to be like the frontline punch that creates change in the game. Controlling is kind of like a reverse. It's like, I'm going to see where the enemy team is and I'm going to prevent them from doing certain things, like kind of like an anti-player. Like, I'm going to guard this important area because I think they're going to use it, and I'm going to snipe them as they come through, or I'm going to force them to do, you know, less than ideal things with their time. And then farming is a player who they're not really thinking so much about territory or strategy. They're just thinking about getting as many points as possible, and it doesn't really matter who they're getting it from. So that this player will put themselves right in the middle of the action or in all the best spots in the arena, and their goal is, as long as I'm getting points, I'm helping the game. Like, that's their tendency. They just want to be racking up high scores. And support is a type of player that whatever they're doing, they're thinking about someone else on their team and what that person's doing, and their whole goal is just to help a different person accomplish whatever goal they have in mind. It's like the scout or the who sees their commander going in and they're thinking, okay, I'm just going to take a sniper spot and help my commander push in by putting one into the heavy or whatever have you. These four archetypes I just kind of came up with for funsies. Now I think a really good player at high level play will utilize all four of these objectives that I just listed, but we're talking about tendencies tonight, you know, like what feels like organic to people, and I don't know, what do you think?
Well, I gotta say it's interesting. I've never had somebody talk about the game this way, to me at least. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, I would certainly agree that a good player carries all four of these sections, right? Like, I mean, this is essentially
Hmm.
your food pyramid of laser tag here. Um, you know, I think the difference between someone who's okay or good can
Hmm.
specialize in one of these areas, right? And then someone who's great knows how to utilize, you know,
All of them.
yeah, all of them, not even all at the same time, but throughout the same game. And that's really what's
Hmm.
important is, you know, you need to know the difference between when it's time to make a play or when it's time to react to a play. You know, when it's time
Right,
to
right,
step back and play defense, when it's time to go and farm points versus going for an enemy kill, or when it's time to help your other teammates, you know, finish their
right,
objective in the game, such as getting bases or surviving or getting shots, lives, etc.
right. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like at high level play, you know, you're looking at the field and maybe it's a critical time to push the enemy out of their base. Like no matter if that's the best move to make, any player, no matter like what their preference is, they should be willing to go in and try to utilize some force if it's what is best for the team and best for the situation. I think playstyle comes out particularly in the scout role because of how ill-defined it can be. Like different teams will obviously utilize their scouts and give different jobs or responsibilities to scouts. But I think when it's just like, you know, random, go in as a scout, I really start to see people let their personality come out when playing the scout role. And I think that's where I started to get these ideas.
Really, um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I would, hmm, I guess I would
If you have a
agree.
disagreement, please let me know. Like, let's have a discussion.
Yeah, I would both agree and disagree. So I'm going to agree on the point of I think Scout has the most opportunity for diversity in its role and what it needs at different
Mm-hmm.
points of the game.
Mm-hmm.
However, I would say, you know, really depending on which class you're going to align with and whether that's the class you're best at or the class you're best at on a team setting versus like an individual setting. So, and a prime example of this I can give is when I play Scout, I will play
Mm-hmm.
much more individually and less as
Mm-hmm.
a teammate versus when I am playing Commander. You know, I used to think that was such a reckless role, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really, you know, arguably, I would say the most strategic role in the game. Um,
Okay, okay.
so I guess it really just depends, and
Talk more
that's where I
about that.
disagree. You know,
Yeah, could you elaborate a little more on like maybe how teamwork might conflict with, you know, utilizing a play style that you have a preference towards?
yeah. Well, and this isn't the case for everybody, of course, but I found that this is like a good baseline for most teams and most players. Obviously, when you're playing something like a resupply role, your goal is support. You know,
Yeah, it's
you're
support, definitely.
and for that reason, I'd say you know you're pretty much limited to support when you're a resupply. You're not, you know, you're not farming points.
Mm-hmm.
You're not out in the middle of the enemy team. And there's special circumstances, but from a general standpoint, you know, you are a supportive player in the game.
definitely.
I would say, if you're going to play heavy weapons, I think a lot of heavy weapons is for controlling and like
Mm.
I would say like counteracting enemies.
Mm-hmm.
The way I view it at least is, it's smartest to send your heavy out at different points, but only specifically to counteract what the enemy team is trying to do to either recover or gain an edge. And then
Mm-hmm.
your commander and your scouts you use to gain that edge. Those are your forcing, initiative, playmaker, and sometimes those farming points and more reckless players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So truth is, like, I wanted to throw this out there as kind of like more of a fun idea. Um, because I don't know that simplifying everyone's playstyle down to like 4 categories, like the Hogwarts houses, is like, I think it's kind of a fun idea, but really, if any player is trying to do like a super, I guess what I would think is like, if I'm playing at a highly competitive level, I want players that see the game widely enough that if they have a tendency like this that I see, that they know how to break out of it when it's the right time to do so. And if I'm building a team, I might at least consider, okay, this person really likes to play more supportive when they play scout. They might be a more natural fit to play alongside this type of commander, who really, I really want like the two attacking together. Um, things like that.
Yeah,
But
and
the go ahead. The meta
oh,
evolves, I was gonna say, and I know you put a note about that. Like maybe certain playstyles have or are starting to come out as just being superior to others. Like I completely agree. If you're support, or if you're resupply, your job inherently is support, and that play style has so far been pretty predominant over. Like I don't see resupplies trying to attack the enemy resupply by themselves. That if that's going to be the meta someday, it's not here yet.
yeah. Well, and that's one of my favorite parts of this game and any game that you might play, and that you would watch or you would see, right? It's right now what we think players have done in the past. Can you imagine, 5, 10 years in the future, we look back and we're like, oh man, what were we doing back then? Right?
Right.
It's the
Mm-hmm.
same joke that I make about modern medicine versus like medicine from the 1800s. We look back at them and we're like, wow, you know, sticking garlic in your nose doesn't cure diabetes. but
Mm-hmm.
who knows? In 400 years, we might find out that sticking garlic in your nose does cure diabetes, right? Um, so it's
Well,
just the same theory with laser tag. Is the meta is going to change. We're going to find things that work better that we haven't tested yet and are actually the best thing for the game and the best thing for a team to beat what was previously a superior team.
right. See that I think I need to make an amendment to like your metaphor just there. Like, what was it? Sticking what in your nose
Garlic in your nose,
as a cure to what, cancer or
diabetes.
diabetes? Okay, totally
I mean,
forgot
I
about
mean,
that.
it's a
Okay,
Mad Lib. You can
so
insert
so
blank on blank.
we know right now that sticking garlic in your nose does not like cure diabetes. We know that for a fact. Um, but what we don't know is like maybe in 500 years humans develop some kind of like crazy like weird allergy or like our genes change to such a way that then garlic does cure diabetes. And it's not the case right now, but maybe someday it will be. And maybe that is actually a reasonable metaphor for like the idea of a meta where of different play styles coming in and whatever is currently the situation, like the meta is whatever is working best to win games based on what people are doing right now. But someday, yeah, we might look at Space Marines and the way we tend to define the roles in a pretty general sense and be like, no, that's not how you do it at all. and I'm loving watching meta evolve. Honestly, one of my favorite ones that I'm seeing is like you said that heavy should be more of a controlling type of play style. Like regardless of the player, maybe they should play it more like a controlling role. I'm actually loving watching players begin to use heavy more aggressively or forcefully. I think that was something big in Detroit's strategy in 2019 when Micro was playing heavy. And even seeing Rusty play heavy here in the 2023 Nats. Heavy's going out to take space and just be a wrecking ball into the enemy resupply. It's not perfect, like it has pros and cons, right? When you give up control in exchange for force, you're losing something and you're gaining something. And it's all about the context of the game. But it's like, what works well, what works best in the situation that you're in with the players that you're in it with? That's what people should be thinking about when they're making decisions in game.
Yeah, I
But
would.
you know, like a Cody who loves playing defensive isn't gonna be the best for that type of a heavy, you know?
No. Yeah, like I would completely agree with that. Um, and I guess you're right. Like when we're seeing like especially in New Zealand, we saw some more aggressive heavies, and like Rusty's a really good example of this. Is you know I don't know about you, but in my lifetime, this is the first time I've seen him play heavy in a tournament.
Yeah, I'd only heard legends before this.
Yeah, and it was a whole new experience. One on you
A
know
whole new world.
one on like the attacking side, and two just in general like being on the enemy team to experience that. Um,
Right.
especially when you're playing commander and your primary goal is, I mean, your primary goal changes game by game, but when you're faced up against a heavy that can win a trade realistically, 9 times out of 10, and if we're talking about just the numbers, they should win 10 times out of 10. um,
Mm-hmm.
it's just very interesting, and it will lead to more meta evolution, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So thanks for indulging me and all that. We kind of laid out just like maybe some ways that playstyle could potentially play into meta and teamwork and team building and players evolving individually. All of this is just theory, right? Like I'm no expert. These four categories or the way that we're defining all this. It's still so, like you said, no one's ever talked to you like this about the game. That's the fun of this podcast. It's just ideas.
Yeah.
Um, would love to hear you talk about your play style and your journey, starting from your first ever experience in SM5 up to now.
Oh gosh. Well, um, please allow me to dog on myself for a bit if we're going to talk about my early play style. So
I'll do it too afterwards. No worries.
perfect. Thank you, Luke.
Mm.
um, let's go. Let's rewind the clock 8 years to 2015. I was such a reckless player.
mm.
I remember not playing anything but Scout for my first little while of playing Space Marines, and then I played a couple games on other positions here or there, but really that was a point in which, Loveland as a site, we just stuck the new player on Scout, let them learn, and then once they're decent, they can try other roles, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I previously never really played Commander. And so moving from someone with 1 hit point, 1 shot power to, 3 hit points, 2 shot power
Mm-hmm.
for my first
Oh.
Laserforce Internationals was game changing for me. And I played so reckless in comparison because those 2 extra hit points and the 1 extra shot power. And it led to a very reckless and so I don't know the best way to really put it besides reckless. It was just about
Mm-hmm.
scoring points, shooting anybody I can, and guessing. Hopefully, I'm going to eliminate a player or the enemy team, or hopefully, I'll outscore them. Right
Sure. Yeah, it
now,
was a pretty early conception of the game for you.
Right, and that led to things like me dying out early in a ton of games. I mean, and realistically, your commander should never really die out before most people on your team in most games. But there were several
Mm-hmm.
games, even that tournament, where I died out, minutes and minutes and minutes before anybody else on my team.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess moving forward from there, I kind of kept with that like reckless, aggressive play style. I just refined it a little more, went a little bit less guessing, a little bit better on like not dying out in 2 minutes. And as I started to become a better player, you learn, about playing against different players, playing against different teams, learning how to properly attack a team depending on the positions and the enemy players and the state of the game. I'd say this is my early play style here, and
Mm-hmm.
where it is now is a little bit of a slower paced play style. Not gonna lie, um, not to say that I don't run and make quick decisions or anything, but slowing down and not being as reckless was such an important point of growth in my current style.
Yeah, it was astounding to watch, if I might
Right.
say, because you were always such a player that wanted to attack, attack, attack. In 2018, when you were our scout for the West Coast tournament, I mean that you were pretty much like 7, 8K scout games and stealing all of Josiah's special points and meta kits. Like that was what you were good at, and it's what you gravitated towards. So I'm interested. Like, was that did you have to force that, or did it become more natural to you?
So I would definitely say it became more natural to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was the only way in which I viewed how to play the game. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why it came naturally is, if you only see something from one perspective, that's all you know. Versus, if I was to look from a different perspective or learn a little bit more about other positions, I can see, okay, maybe I shouldn't play this way in this situation yet.
Right,
Right.
right,
So I would definitely say at that point, it was only because it was all I knew, and that way it was the only option was aggression.
right. Mm-hmm. Okay, so actually, what I meant to ask you was you were just starting to talk about how you began slowing down and thinking about the game in more of a strategic and teamwork based standpoint. Was that did you have to force that part of it?
Um, honestly, no, that just came from playing on different teams and talking with different people about what they think of the game. I mean, in it sounds like crazy to me, but in sorry, in only 8 years of playing, there's still people who've been playing longer than I've been alive, right? And I'm 21 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
you get to talking with those people about how they view the game, and then you just naturally start looking for what they're talking about because they're better than me. So obviously, what they know is meaning something, right? So
Mm-hmm.
why not look at it from that point, give that a shot? Okay, well, great, I gave that a shot. It worked. Let's learn more. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it was a very natural progression once I started to listen to other people about how they viewed and played the game.
Yeah, I suppose winning more games is always a great incentive to get you to change, huh?
Yes.
Like, oh, that worked. I think I'll do it again.
Right, and that's a point of, getting better is realizing with trial and error, somebody else has played 5,000 games of trial and error, so that I don't need
Mm-hmm.
5,000 games of trial and error. I need 2,000 games of trial and error and 20 hours of listening.
Oh my gosh, listening, yes. Oh, preach that to the crowd because like people need to know. And I would even say watching. Like, when I first met Thunder back in, gosh, it would have literally been about 2013 before we even hosted Nats. He talked to me about nukes for like an hour because I wanted to learn. And he basically just helped jump me like 2 or 300 games with that talk in terms of how to use my nukes. Or honestly, like maybe I would have played 1,000 games of Commander and never figured out some of the things that he had told me in that talk and all that time. I had an old choir director, and he said, practice doesn't make perfect, it makes permanent. It's like whatever you're practicing, you're just getting better at doing that thing. But when you're actually trying new things and you're evolving the play style and you start practicing that, I mean, that's what becomes ingrained. Honestly, maybe it could be really damaging for a player to keep playing only at their home site, only against the same players. Because when you get out into the tournament scene and suddenly you're against these much harder opponents, all that stuff you've been practicing just like might not work, or it might work once and then you don't know any other moves once they figure that out.
Yeah, and not only that, but even if let's say your home site players are better, it's a brand new play style and a brand new version of the game in a new arena, like, and I think a
Yeah,
big part of this conversation has been meta. I think play styles change depending on the arena as well. And I think that's a very important thing that we don't really address a ton is how much someone's play style is going to shift depending on what arena they're in, or should.
right. Or even the role they're playing. I think my playstyle changes a lot based on which of the 5 classes I'm playing.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that as well.
Mhm.
As it really should. I don't want to see you
Yes.
trying to score 8K as a medic.
Right. Right, but I also think, like, I think when it comes to heavy, I tend to be one of the more aggressive heavies in the tournament scene. And yet when it comes to medic, I tend to be one of the most reserved medics in the tournament scene. Like, the way that we all interpret each of the 5 roles can be pretty vastly different. I don't know that it's always you know, my my one style fits all 5 classes, kind of the way it does for Loki, who I described.
Yeah, I think he's
Uh,
he's someone that no matter what is always just going to be one of the sneakiest people ever.
that's right. That's right. That's more just part of his personality. Yeah, was that did that kind of cap off the journey of Rainbow Panther of Slaughtermelon?
Yeah, I
Or
would say over the past 8 years, the evolution of me can really be summed up from Rainbow Panther to Slaughtermelon, my original code name for those of
yeah,
you who
yeah.
didn't know. It can really be summed up as a baby growing up. I'm reckless. I'm like this newborn deer. I'm wobbling everywhere, but I'm trying to run and I keep falling. And then, I watch, I learn, I try new
Mhm.
things, and next thing you know, I'm a full blown deer running down a lion, and
I
I'm the
love
hunter.
that.
I am now the hunter deer.
Don't you hunt me or my family anymore.
I want you to imagine an 8 foot jacked deer. All right.
And that is Slaughtermelon. Don't even look up a picture of him. That just put a laser tag vest on that deer.
Yes. That's what I want. In this podcast, I want a Photoshop picture of an 8 foot jack deer. Um,
Ah, I might be able to make that happen someday.
thank you.
So, how much of this, I get the sense that some of your evolution had to do with you growing as a human, not just as a laser tag player. You started out with a lot less cognitive ability than you do now, going from being 13 to 21. Like, you just are, you're capable of deeper thought, you know?
Oh, yeah. And I would say not only deeper thought, but a lot more emotional maturity. Um,
Oh, yes.
yeah. I mean, if anyone knows me, they really know how much I've gone
No, no,
from.
no, me too. Like,
Yeah, no, no, really, I've gone from fart jokes to poop jokes, so I'm doing good. But no, truly, I think, and this is something I'll probably delve into a little bit more later into this, but emotional maturity is such a big part of the game.
mm-hmm.
You need to keep
Yeah.
a good
Oh,
mentality and
definitely.
a cool head in order to make the right decisions in a game.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, I would venture to say, let's see, you've been playing for 8 years. So if you started playing at 5 and you played for 8 years until you were 13, I don't think you would be the same player at all at that point that you are right now at 21. Even if you had all the same 8 years of experience, I think you being like you growing in your own life experiences plays a part as well. Like you said, the emotional maturity and the cognitive ability too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 8 years of growing from 13 to 21, and you know, if we're really looking at it, I'm supposed to keep growing for another 4 years in terms of the frontal
Mm-hmm.
lobe. So maybe I'll get
Yes, sir.
4 more years of good practice and good play in.
Yeah. Oh, it's cool you know that because yeah, males usually we're not fully developed till 25, and that's crazy. Hey, mind if I talk about my journey a little here?
Please do. I've been waiting for this.
Heck yeah. So I started a little later than you. I was in high school when I got hired on to. Actually, I was a freshman when I started playing at members' nights, so I would be about 14 or 15. Yeah, I guess I was just right about your age, just a little older. um, you see, in 2012, I was a sophomore in high school, and that's when I first got to play in my first ever SM5 tournament. And I very intentionally need to shout out some players that nobody knows or probably cares about at this point. But my first SM5 team that I played on was with some players named Logan Houseman, Daniel Jimison, Chase Harms, and Bailey Gonzalez. Um, People would know Logan Houseman. He is actually the voice of the vest. He'll tell you a lot of funny lines while you're trying to play laser tag. So just some high school buddies, and I I think my age and my immaturity as a human really came into play with my playstyle because like I was capable of playing defensive. I could do it if I had to, like if my life was on the line, but I I only wanted to play offense and I wanted it so much that Chase was considered better player than me, and from where we were, that meant he got to play commander and I got to play heavy. That's how we that's how much we understood the game. But I refused to defend the resupply. I would only attack. And when they got mad at me, I would say, "Well, then put me on commander." And that was pretty much my play style. I would just attack people relentlessly, probably from the same direction mostly. And wasn't super good, you know? I wasn't exactly super skilled at that point. But for whatever reason, that's the only play style I had like respect for in a way.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I saw defense for like weaker players or something. Like I really did. And we just Aiden and I just did 10 medic tips, and we talked about the hurtful stereotype of the medic and how that's often considered like the weak link of a team or the worst player. And now that I'm playing at this super high level, I understand that the medic is an equal and highly important part of the team that takes a lot of intellect and skill to play at the level that you have to play it at now. Um, but I know that a lot of new players will come into the game kind of with the mentality that I once had. If they get put on heavier resupply, or especially resupply, they get really bummed out or grumpy.
They do get pretty discouraged, and myself included. I used to be like that as well. I used to
Oh,
be
totally.
super discouraged being put on even heavy weapons. I was like, oh man, like if people are gonna tell me to just defend, like what's my purpose? What's my point in the game?
Mm-hmm. Right. And if that's the question you're asking, it's totally fine. I get it. Um, Josiah calls it like Call of Duty mindset. Like you just want to spawn in and go attack and kill people. I get it. Because that's one of the most fun parts of the game for most people. Um, but anyway, that's where I began, right? I was like a 15, 16-year-old and I just wanted to attack people. And also, a lot of it was wrapped up in my ego. I wanted to be the best player at the site, wanted everyone to know I was. And that kind of continued even as you and I began traveling. I think I pretty much only wanted to play Commander until we went to Syracuse in 2016. And that was the first time I began really watching other players play and learn from them. I watched Baden or Brew playing heavy in Syracuse. I was watching him just like tag this scout, reset off the base, missile the scout, tag the base, run another direction, missile the scout again. It was like this one play he did. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I think I kind of get what he's doing. And I got like this little seed of like a heavy play style from Baden. And I think we switched me to heavy that tournament in finals, and we were able to take fourth. I think we took fourth. We beat Syracuse B because of switching me on to heavy, and also it allowed you and Josiah to get on offense, and that was really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I developed more of a territory control play style from that point on, and I played that all the way through like 2019. I began learning about trails, and my goals were no longer necessarily set towards killing the other team. It was more set towards, oh, I want to hold these areas so that my team can kill the other team. You know, I was adding just one extra layer onto the play style. And I think I had a lot more success once I started doing that. At least it was like a play style that allowed a bunch of other Call of Duty quote unquote type players to be able to thrive a little more. Yeah. But I think about 2019 I realized that I think all along I've wanted to play Scout. Truly. I don't want to be the person who's like having a lot of attention on me. Um I prefer to be backline. I prefer to be coming in and flanking, playing more of like a rogue or an assassin or a sniper. It felt really natural to me. I just remember this one game at the end of the Syracuse 2021 random draw. Our team had won the whole tournament, and so there wasn't anything to play for. So I rolled scout, and I put my hood up, and I decided I'm not going to speak the entire game. And I went, and I think I put up like a 9K scout score while Tandor ran in as commander. Tandor was just soaking up all the attention, and I just silently pegged everyone who wasn't noticing me. And it took like zero mental energy. It was so organic for me. I love being like a sniper. And at the same time, like playing heavy, being really loud, being center of attention was starting to feel like it took more and more mental energy. So like it's kind of that difference we were talking about earlier. Like I can play the style that is most useful to my team, but there are other styles that just I naturally gravitate towards, even if they're not always the best. And they're probably going to always be like popping up in the way I play as kind of a flavor to my game.
Well, and if it's truly like a play style or an action that resonates with you, I think most of the time it is better to just embrace it. You know, play it to its
Exactly.
strengths.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that brings me to my final stage of my journey. Like I had gone through offense only, then territory control, then assassin, and I have all these layers. And I think I got a little bit of a nugget to add on from this last Nats, where I got to play my first full tournament on Scout. And let me tell you, it was so fun. I've never gotten to really play on a team where I got to play Scout the entire time. And I honestly, I didn't really even read the Twitch chat. Like I know people were making suggestions for different lineups for us, but I pretty much selfishly had my mindset. I wanted to play Scout. It felt really natural for me. But I think coming out of 2023, realized like I want to utilize more power. I want to be more of a player who creates plays rather than just sets them up for other people. Which I think that feels more natural to me, but just seeing what the level of competition I was playing at and what was necessary for us to win, I don't know. It's just something I'm playing with. I came back from Nats, and the way I was playing, I've had some hero plays straight up. There's a there's a game I put on my personal YouTube channel, where I think I was playing Commander against Josiah. I got down by like a whole nuke, 3,000 points, and like a good chunk of medic lives. Like we were gonna die. Um, I managed to get a really aggressive lucky nuke cancel and the biggest reset chain of my life pretty much by myself because I decided I wasn't going to rely on anybody but me. And is that how you play in a competitive tournament? Probably not. But I'm experimenting more, you know?
Well,
This is my play style evolving.
and I would really argue that you played just so well in New Zealand, you know?
Oh yeah. I appreciate that. Can't deny that. I think we all feel a little down on ourselves, but Nolan and I are going to talk about that more on an upcoming podcast. We're going to talk about what we learned, you know.
Yeah, of
But appreciate that, man. Thanks.
course. uh,
Anyway, there's the journey of mischief, and you know, people. I think people can look at us and see that we have general play styles, but I agree with you. It's also dependent on the arena and dependent on the role we're playing and who we're playing with, probably. So I'd put this question down, like, what role do you think our play style even has in a competitive setting?
yeah. I do you want me to kick this one off?
Yeah, it's for you. What's your answer?
Uh, Um, I kept it pretty. I guess I'll keep it pretty brief on what role a playstyle has. Um, and are we talking role as in like commander, scout, like the SM5 roles?
No, does your play style have any role in a competitive setting, or should it be like forgotten about even?
I see. Well, in that case, I'm glad I put the right notes down to to properly understand this. I mean, in my opinion, your play style is going to heavily determine if you're compatible with your teammates, if you're capable of competitive play, and it'll ultimately determine if you're going to be one of the better players, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, you can't stick 6 people with the same play style in mind if they're all selfish, right? You can't stick 6 selfish players on
Hmm.
a team. They're gonna lose
Hmm.
every single game, right?
That's interesting.
So
Because you're getting me to think that some play styles might be like preferences, and some things might just be plain negative qualities in a player.
well, I don't like to think of things as negative, right? Because I think even if you have a selfish play style, I think you are perfect for the right team. You know?
Hmm. That that's fair. Like you could have one selfish commander and 5 support players. Pretty much the whole win condition is get this player 1,200 points or 12,000 points.
Right. And you're gonna win a lot more games than if you stuck 6 selfish players together, right?
Right.
Now, it's the same reason you can't stick 5 or sorry, 6 supportive players all together. No one's gonna accomplish their individual goals. Um, at least in my opinion on it, right? So I really think the role your play style has is one of the most important things. So,
Yeah. I find it interesting that you use the word selfish to describe a playstyle. What do you mean by that?
well, and I guess let me start with this: is selfish is not always bad. Um, I
Okay.
think sometimes it can be perceived as I guess I can understand why the word has negative connotations, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in certain situations you need to be selfish, right? Um, For
Mm-hmm.
example, I guess I'll say this about like new players. New
Mm-hmm.
players most of the time are not selfish enough. They have no sense of self-preservation. If they have 5 lives
I
and
see.
you tell them to go back in, they're just going to listen to you, right?
Right.
Eh, eh,
Yeah, they're not thinking for themselves at all.
yeah, which I know when you say not thinking for themselves, that makes it sound like they're not selfish, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the way I view selfish is like no self-preservation there, just only self-preservation, right? Or just not thinking about the
Mm-hmm.
whole team in that sense, right? So
Yeah.
you have some new players that either won't leave until they're at 30 lives or will go out no matter what. So you have people who are too selfish, not selfish enough. Um, you have commanders that are too selfish and they're going to stack to 5 nukes while the rest of their team dies. And then by the time
Mm,
they nuke 5 times, they're not winning that game, right?
classic.
But you also have commanders and they're going to stack a couple nukes because
Mm-hmm.
selfishly so, they may think it is not the right time to nuke. They'll
Mm-hmm.
nuke, they'll win the game.
I can think of one commander who's done that.
you, you can think of a lot. I can think of a lot. One of them's in this chat. That's fine.
Mm.
Um,
But no, I understand exactly what you mean. Um, Selfish does have a negative connotation, but you know, if a person has an important job and everybody wants to help that person do a job, you want someone who maybe they are more, what's the right word? Self-responsible is like the word that I'm thinking of. Like they want to do the job themselves and not help someone else do it. They're more self-reliant might be a good word.
yeah, I think that's great. Like some people just don't, need the backing of their whole team.
Yeah, and that's a great kind of person to play with too. Someone who like you can just trust them to get their job done, whatever that
Yeah.
job is.
um, I mean, and I guess, what do you think about what role your playstyle has in a competitive setting? I mean,
Hmm. I think it works in team building, like you said. Um, I would think about not only like the personalities of the players, but like who's playing what role in that arena. Like in some arenas, if I were just building a team of nameless people, I there's some arenas that I'd rather have a controlling type of heavy. Some arenas I'd rather have like an aggressive type of heavy. Um, the scouts I think could be all kinds of different things. Like in Detroit, I'd probably want scouts that have really good hit differentials and are better at farming. In Auckland, I probably would want scouts that are more aggressive, really know how to like push in as a unit and get medic hits and flush a team, things like that. Um, so I guess if you the listener, you're wondering what role your playstyle has, like I would just think, what's the context? What team are you playing on? What role are you playing? And think about honestly like what you're gonna succeed at and what you're gonna struggle at based on what you know about yourself. And then I'd wonder like how much can you improve on the things you're struggling at? Is it possible you'd be better on a different role? If it really is something that's like super unorganic to you. I don't like people tend to think like, oh, let's put the best two players on 3 hit, then scout, then ammo and medic. But sometimes you make an unorthodox pick for the commander heavy role, and it elevates the whole team because the synergy changes and becomes a lot better.
yeah.
Yeah, this is my word vomit.
No. I mean, yeah, like I would agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really trying to think if I have much to add on top of that.
Oh, you're good. I have another question if you don't have anything.
Sure, yeah.
Do you think people should ever try to change their play style?
Oh, Yes, always. Always, always, always.
Expound.
I think you should constantly try new things. I think, in every competitive activity in existence, pioneers will create the path to better play and
Yes.
therefore better players.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like really, if you have a bunch of people who are, you know, under the impression that the only way to get to the number four is 1 + 1 + 1 + 1, and they're wasting so much time. Imagine simplifying all of their work 2 + 2, right? This is the
Mm-hmm.
invention of doubles, right?
Good metaphor. Yeah.
And that's a great thing. Like, I mean, there had to have been a point in Space Marines where people thought the best thing to do was only get lives at once or only get shots at once,
Right. Mm-hmm.
And imagine if we were still playing that way today. Somebody somewhere along the line said, "Look, we're going to shoot this person at the exact same time, and we're going to introduce doubles." I think this is another reason why you should always continue to play with newer players. They're going to try some crazy things, and sometimes those things are going to work. They're going to be, not just working because it caught someone off guard, but genuinely working because it was a fantastic idea and a great new thing to try.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's
So,
such a good point that playing with new players, especially from other sites, like they just bring different ideas about the game that you never see. And even if it's things that don't work, like you can still learn from people who do things that don't work. You can know what not to do.
yeah,
I don't
no, I mean, well, it
know.
sounds like you do know, Luke. It's
I
great
I
to
know
learn.
some things and I definitely don't know other things, you know? Like I mean, there's talk of this trios tournament coming up and we're talking about like who we're all going to play with and I sincerely want to play with at least one person from a different site because I can play with my own players anywhere and I want to play with my players absolutely from Loveland. But gosh dang it, I kind of wish I could do 5 of these tournaments in a row just so I can play with 10 different people.
Yeah. Well, and that's like
But
exactly, you make a great point with this upcoming trios tournament. I promised myself, I said, okay, I'm not going to play with somebody that I'm actively playing with.
right.
It just doesn't make sense right now. You have this opportunity to learn and really experience some play styles and some people you're not used to playing on the same team with. You're going to see their tendencies, their play styles up close. You're going to learn a lot from them.
Mhm. Definitely. Okay. I have one more question. I just put it up on the spot before we wrap up here. I think we might get a little spicy with these takes if you're up for that.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. In the current meta, which is a whole podcast in itself, a whole different conversation. In the current meta, what playstyles work best for each of the 5 classes? Let's start with medic.
Oh,
Not you don't stick with the 4 that I made up, like all these other words that you've made up, like what comes to mind for you?
you just want
Best
my
playstyle
raw
for
spicy opinions.
yeah, raw spicy opinion. And I'll give mine as well.
um, I think the medic needs to be arguably the most selfish person on the team.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Just
I
because they gotta conserve their lives but I mean sometimes the team needs the medic desperately. I mean,
well, that's fine, but I think sometimes the medic sits there and will get shot and shot and shot, and they will waste everybody's time because they're so worried about not everybody getting it. There's 9 times out of 10, there's a chance to regroup before it's an actual emergency. But if you have your
mm,
medic that's just sitting there because they need to make sure everyone else is getting, their health, I think that ruins a lot. I think that's what really kills a team in a stressful situation.
mm, so interesting. Because my initial thought was that this has to be one of the most humble or selfless people. And I understand what you mean. Um the medic shouldn't just sit there getting shot. There's definitely contexts when the medic is able to see more clearly than other players because everyone's so focused on fighting, and the medic is the only one, you know, paying attention to the whole situation and thinking maybe I should be somewhere else right now. It's, but the medic dies first. The medic comes out with a very low score every game usually. And a lot of times the medic and ammo are working in tandem, or the medic, ammo, and heavy are working in tandem. And a medic that is disagreeable or not willing to work with other team members and even like give up on their own ideas so that they can go with the group, I feel like that could be really destructive to a team as well.
Really? Well, I mean, not really. Yeah.
my medic just runs off and kills the other team all the time.
No, and I mean, like, I think there's a certain level of aggression that might be necessary at certain points from a medic, but yeah, no, generally speaking, I think I understand why medics are usually seen as like the most humble or most selfless players because they have a finite amount of lives. Yeah, but I
Well,
think. Oh, sorry.
no, I mean that adds to your point of selfishness. They only have 20 lives. They need to take care of themselves.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at a certain point, you got to say like, look, here's where I'm going. Here's what I'm doing. You guys need to figure it out because I am finite. You guys are not.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically speaking, the medic is the only finite player in the game. Even the ammo has unlimited shots.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, cool. I think we've fleshed out two sides of the medic there. And who's to say, you know? Well, let's go to the ammo. What about the ammo? What's the best play style for them?
Here's here's another hot take, and I'm gonna put a lot of this on the fact that, in my opinion, I think I have the least amount of understanding out of all the positions. I have the least amount of understanding on ammo.
Okay.
Um, but I think that the ammo needs to be one of the more attentive players of the game, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes really just ignore when people say like, "Don't give me resupplies," or I don't know. I see like my issue with a lot
Mm-hmm.
of ammos is they think that they are locked into defense when
Mm-hmm.
they should really be helping the scouts and commander. I think there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of missed opportunities when the commander's full on lives and still waiting in the base for shots. I think the ammo needs to be someone who takes more initiative
Mm-hmm.
in the game.
I love that. I absolutely love your take. It's spicy, but it tastes good. It's like a sweet and sour, spicy kind of chicken wing here. Um, yeah, I like that. I'm gonna add the word creativity. I think is a good trait for an ammo to have in their play style. I think that is the one role that probably has the most in my mind to expand upon as far as different tricks and uses that they can find. Um, because yeah, it's a unit with unlimited shots, and there's a lot of positions where a teammate might just need shots, and if the ammo is forward, they could be split up from the medic. Like you do need to have a mindset where you can go back and double and work in tandem with the medic, like I said earlier, but they also have the power to be useful in 1,000 different ways on the field or near their base. So I think creativity, attentiveness, like you said, um, I think a territory control type of ammo is pretty good. Because they can take space like a scout can, and sort of they can control areas adjacent to their base in order to help protect the medic.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. Let's go commander. What about commander?
Well, I think the commander needs to be the most selfless person on the team, and
This is
that's really where,
crazy.
huh?
This is crazy. I was just saying.
And this is really where, like, I know not many people are going to agree with me, but I think the commander has to make the most sacrifice in the game.
Okay.
Um, I mean, your commander is essentially one of your biggest win conditions in the game of Space Marines. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to have, some of the biggest influence on the game. And I think, a lot of the times the pressure is on the commander to score the highest, or, well, I mean, actually, yeah, I think the pressure is mostly on the commander to score the highest. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's such a mistake most of the time. Um, and you can be perceived as a bad commander or not as good if you are not as scoring, not as high scoring. When in reality, I mean, you're just making better decisions. I think you need to be really selfless in your actions. I think, overall, the team's goal is to support the commander, but in
Mm-hmm.
turn, that commander has all of the team's trust to make the right decision.
That is the spiciest take you've given so far, honestly. Because people don't think that. They don't think the commander is the selfless. People think that the whole team is built around the commander.
Well, and I think that too, but I also think with that comes, the responsibility of a good commander is to make the right decision for the team when most of the times commanders make the right decisions for themselves. And I think that's what separates a good commander from a bad commander. It goes back to the simplest way I can put it, and there's, much more or many more examples I can give, but the easiest example I can give always goes back to the five stacking commander. Some of the best commanders can easily get to five nukes every game. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But are they going
Mm-hmm.
to win those games? They can easily
Yeah,
score
not always.
the highest out of the other 11. Like, I mean, 12 players in a game, and they can easily score the highest, but they're not going to be the ones winning.
Dude,
So,
you make a good point.
well, and that's the thing. I mean, we look back to, I mean, let's look back to New Zealand. I think
Mm-hmm.
there was a huge learning curve for myself. I really wish I would have gotten there a couple days earlier, like I planned. But you see me averaging 7K commander games to 10K commander games, and even when I'm
Mm-hmm.
averaging my 10K commander games, I'm still getting outscored, but I'm winning those games.
Your team is winning the games. You know?
Yes,
You're
yeah,
you're part of the team.
and yeah, sorry. When I say me, I mean the whole team. Of course,
No,
because while I feel like a winner, there is no I in team. There's just an I in Slaughtermelon with an I at the end.
oh man, no, I'm not correcting you or scolding you. I'm saying like that's why you won when you scored lower than the other commander. Because you were making more important you're doing more important things with your time than, you know, just racking up the points. The territories you were controlling or the people you were attacking were critical in those moments to help your teammates activate as well. That was my observation of you guys from that tournament. And that was so funny that you began that whole monologue there with, like, who am I to say? I believe that's what you said, or, you know, it's good to have modesty, but at this exact moment, you are the um, champion commander of the world. I think we can all learn a little something from that, because even I, before recording this podcast, like I would have absolutely said the commander should be the most selfish person, and that's something I'm gonna think about coming out of this podcast tonight. I
Well,
remember a game that we played against Auckland A. I think our final one of rounds, and Morange got a 13K commander score against our team, and he lost.
yeah.
Because even though he was destroying us, we were destroying his team. And maybe he should have, who's to say? Maybe he should have played a little more defensive at a couple critical points, ended up with 1,000 or 2,000 less, and maybe it would have won them the game. Who knows?
Yeah, well, and another good example I like to give of this is our last game. I mean, when I really I made the conscious decision to ignore the Twitch stream chat for the entirety of the tournament until I went back and watched games after.
Sure.
And the entire
Probably a
tournament,
good call.
I can't tell you how many times I heard the why is Slaughtermelon stacking? Why is he not dropping? And
Mm-hmm.
a big portion of it is because, man, I'm still learning Commander in this arena.
Mm-hmm.
I've never played Commander in this arena. I need to know what situations are best for my team. And in the final game, where we beat Brisbane, I I get my first nuke, and immediately the chat starts going nuts. Why isn't he dropping? Why is he going to stack? What's he doing? Well, I can tell you from being in that game and playing that game, if I would have dropped, sure, that's going to benefit me. But if I stack till 2 here, man, I know what my team is going to be able to do off of this.
Hmm.
And that's exactly what happened is, I stack till 2, I drop at 2, my team capitalizes.
Interesting.
We all did what we needed to do in those moments. And so that's the thing is, I mean, there's part of the reason I ignore the Twitch chat is because it is so much easier to talk from the outside when you have a visual on everybody in the game. But
Hmm.
it's also because I never want to change my judgment on what I did if it
Hmm.
was right or wrong. I committed to the action and it worked, you know?
For sure, man. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So, in summary, a good commander play style is someone who is selfless and who ignores the Twitch stream.
Yes, precisely.
Love that. Okay. Let's roll through these last two here. What about heavy?
Heavy, I think that one really changes game and game. I think it changes a lot situationally, but I think you really need to understand what your commander needs from you. Um, so I would say overall like a support based role, and I would say
Mm-hmm.
a countermeasure role. I think your heavy is
Mm.
who should play aggressively when you need to stop the enemy team from getting resupplies, and it's somebody that doesn't get used well enough in my opinion. I think a lot of the times the heavy is misused because
Mm-hmm.
if they're full, go out and attack. No, it's you should go out and stop this player from recovering. You should go ahead and stop these players on the enemy team from recovering, right? The
Mm-hmm.
heavy has the highest shot power in the game. The heavy can shoot everybody in the game in one hit. And I think they're so underutilized when it comes to their goals and what their priorities should be. It's just my heavy's full. Let's send my heavy out. You didn't give your heavy any objectives. What's your heavy supposed to do? It's
Mm-hmm.
great they can score 2,000 points, but did those points come from the scouts that are supposed to hang around in midfield while my commander and heavy get full? And then next thing you know, my heavy's empty, the enemy commander and heavy are full, and now we've lost the game?
Mm-hmm.
Or did I give my heavy the objective to say, hey, the heavy weapons right now is on the enemy team is getting resupplied. You need to get in there and you need to shoot the heavy 100 times.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for all those reasons, I think you need a player who is responsible, who is cool-headed, where in the heat of the moment they can make rational decisions, and someone who's tactical.
Yeah, I
You
think
you mentioned
responsible is a great way.
controlling. Controlling is a pretty good thing. Um, yeah, I don't know. These are just like good attributes in any player, really, but especially with heavy. I've From all the tournaments I've played, I know that it's one of the positions that will people will capitalize on your mistakes the most. Um, it takes a bit of a mental load to play the role well because your team relies on you at pretty much all moments of the game. So yeah, I would say someone who's responsible and maybe more teamwork oriented, maybe more supportive, like you said. You don't want to be just running around doing whatever you want as the heavy. Your team should play around you, and you should play around your team. Anyway, how about we finish off with Scout?
Yeah. I think the meaning of scout is flexibility. um, Flexibility and agility. I would say really define a good scout is someone who's able to switch from offense to defense super fast. Someone who's fine being pulled in 20 different directions,
Mm-hmm.
all at the same time, and somebody who's very agile, who's going to be very quick in their movements, who can be really focused.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would definitely second um flexibility. Because like I had said at the beginning, I think the scout is one of the most like undefined roles. It is the most undefined role out of the five. You're essentially a one hit with rapid fire and you get resupplied really quickly. What does that mean? What do I do with that? Well, the best place to position yourself changes constantly throughout the game. Is your team getting destroyed by the enemy heavy who's attacking? Maybe you could shoot that heavy in the back 3 times, and that's the absolute best spot that you could be, or the best thing you could be doing with your time. Or maybe your commander is pushing, and now is a great time to go up behind the enemy and do a pincer attack, because that's all your commander needs to break through. Maybe that's the best move out of all the moves. Like, all playstyles are rewarded with the scout at different points in the game, but the best scouts can do it all. They can be an aggressive force, they can be selfish, they can be selfless, they can be silent and play like a sniper, they can play like a loud distraction, they can be whatever the team needs them to be at that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it right there. Um,
Yeah,
Whatever they need to be in the moment, I think that's what makes a good scout.
for sure. Yeah. Well, I think that's all the thoughts I have on playstyle, unless you got anything else you want to add.
Um, I mean, I think I've really covered everything that I was prepared to talk about today. I mean, there's always more another time.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, what's thing you want players to take away from this discussion?
This is gonna sound extremely cliche, but you need to be bad before you are good.
Ooh,
Um, I think
spicy.
there's spicy.
Yeah, so there's so much spice. I hope the audience has milk because their tongue is probably on fire right now.
Yeah, I just think people have such a hard time pushing through that threshold. They
Mm-hmm.
they give up really fast. They lose motivation. But
Mm-hmm.
truly, you who knows how long you need to be bad before you are a player. Um, I think it varies. I think some people are bad a lot longer. I think some people are good a lot longer, and then they can be bad. But I think it's really important to understand that you need to be bad before you're good. You're gonna have bad days, bad weeks, months, years of tag. I mean, you're gonna have bad games when you're 8 years in or more. You need to
Mm-hmm.
build consistency as a player and strengthen your mentality because that's really what's going to get you to the top tier.
Beautifully spoken, dude. I love that. The one thing I would have players take is just self-awareness. Get curious about your own play style. Ask other people what they think your play style is, and think about how your play style can contribute to different roles that you play or different strategies you want to utilize. Because I think what we kind of agreed on today is that if you have a tendency that feels natural for you, it might be worth leaning into that and seeing what types of teams and players and roles you mesh with best, rather than trying to force yourself to just kind of be someone you're not. The best players can be any like we said, best players can be whatever they need at any point, but that doesn't. We're all human, and if no one's perfect. No one's perfectly without personality to their playstyle. Is there anything you'd like to plug for the listeners?
No, I wish I had something to plug, but really, I just want to thank you for having me on, dude.
Yeah, no problem, dude. Well, your site is Cedar Fun Center, right?
Yes, I can plug the site of Cedar Fun Center.
Yeah, how
You're
about
absolutely right.
plug your freaking Laserforce site?
Yeah, everybody go to Cedar Fun Center. You smash that like button on Facebook. Give us a follow on the Instagram. Get ready to play some laser tag as we're currently fixing our arena.
Heck yeah. Oh, I'm so excited to come out there. I haven't seen it yet, except for the very first tour where there was there wasn't even any customers in the building yet.
Oh man. Well, oh how it's grown.
Cool. All right, thanks for coming on, Slaughtermelon. We will see you at the next tournament.
Thanks, Mischief.